that he's had on the world of Krishna consciousness and the success in his preaching that he had. Even though he was just sitting here in Vrindavan and chanting Hare Krishna, but he's actually had worldwide effect on so many people, especially young people, and given them a taste for chanting the holy name. And that kind of accomplishment is really not something that's very easy to dismiss. Even if one doesn't want to recognize it, it's very hard to deny that he had a massive influence on the world. And somehow or other Krishna chose him to be the conduit for his mercy in this Sankirtana revival, I guess you can say. And it's inspired so many people to chant the holy names the way it's still going on. I mean, here in Vrindavan, of course, 24-hour kirtan is here. All over the world, this kirtan is going on. And Aindra plays no small part in that. And that's because of the blessings of Srila Prabhupada. He had some sincerity within his heart to do something that Krishna reciprocated in that way. Even though, he didn't have any official position, as far as I know, in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He wasn't a big guru or anything like that. He wasn't a GBC, or he was just Aindra. But he was chanting in such a way as to influence so many other people to also chant. And that is the sign of advancement. That is a sign of empowerment, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So I had some good fortune. I suppose you can say I was lucky to have his association, even though I didn't really recognize it in those early days. From time to time I would see him in Vrindavan, and always appreciated the fact that he was doing kirtan here. He told me some things about that also. But I'll let someone else speak, someone who's had more association. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Aindra Prabhu ki. I came to stay in Vrindavan in '93, and Aindra Prabhu was already. When did the kirtan program start?
86.
86. When did you come, Govinda?
96, 98.
Anyway, I just remember the time that he would, in his room, such a mystical room with Gornitai and cow dung everywhere, and so many deities, and devotees would sit, and he would just take the time and glorify the process of bhakti and the necessity of pure chanting. Not necessarily, like a rasika, but maybe, like you said, not the traditional ISKCON preaching, but I never found it to be other than inspiring. His example, he was always worried that the GBC and the authorities that be may misunderstand him and maybe kick him out of society or something. But he tried to be as cooperative as he could be under the circumstances. But he was definitely very enthusiastic to carry out this preaching mission and keep the devotees inspired. I did work with him on his first CDs when he was the Mellows. I lent the money to get that production going. I think Ram Bhadra was involved at some point from New York. And he wanted to have, like what we're doing now, high definition broadcasting. He wanted to touch the whole world, broadcast this message of the holy name throughout the world and get devotees back on the streets chanting and just really focusing on the Sankirtan Yagya. Sankirtan. And of course he would be spending hours a day worshiping the deities and dressing, at least once a week dressing? Once or twice a week?
Sunday.
Yeah, be dressing the deities. And I feel he set a good example and inspired devotees in a nice way. And as Mukunda Datta said, it's inspired many of the youth, Prabhupada is often asked, why is it so many young people are joining your society? He says, old dog, you can't teach old dog new tricks. So people are sometimes set in their ways, and it's very difficult to accept something what appears to be new or different. But the youth could see the spark, and they really liked the kirtan. They liked the enthusiasm and the energy. You could see some of the videos with Aindra Prabhu. When he turned up the energy, then the whole place just like explodes into some sort of special
Kirtan party?
Yeah, special kirtan party. Just like actually Guru Kripa was leading a kirtan Guru Puja the other day, and we were playing, and his eyes just like, and he just started jumping up and down, up and down. There's certain special potency, Shakti. So without that Shakti, it's nothing, kirtan is good. He had that special deep appreciation of kirtan, and he could really inspire the devotees and then move into a 5th year, 6th year, and everybody just, really feels very happy inside and very attracted to the holy name. Yeah, so Aindra Prabhu was sent, performed his mission, did what he had to do. It would have been nice if he stayed longer, but sometimes it happens that way. They can't take the separation from, and Krishna brings them back in mysterious ways. And we're very fortunate to have that opportunity, especially here in Braj, Vrindavan. The tradition carries on. Devotees are still inspired, they're still coming, and we're very thankful to all devotees who put up the energy and are still participating in carrying out his mission of broadcasting the holy name of the Lord. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Vrindavan's got to go soon. So you got to
Okay. We're going to bring back this.
Giving initiations. You become guru?
The mother's mom is giving initiation in the Goshala. So I have to do his fire sacrifice pretty soon. Yes, today we celebrate and honor the appearance day of a great Vaishnava, very great Vaishnava, who, just as Mukundadat Prabhu said, and Panchagara Prabhu also said, that inspired so many devotees all over the world just by staying in Vrindavan, doing kirtan, chanting the holy name, pure holy name in one place. Just by doing that, he inspired and impacted the entire planet. And especially Vaishnava youth. I remember when I first joined the kirtan party, there was back around 14 years ago. There was a little bit of a vibe, like there's Aindra on one side and Guru Kulis, ex-Guru Kulis on the other. Little bit, that sort of thing, Because, obviously they want to do whatever they want. They're smoking this and that, and they don't want to follow any rules and regulations. Aindra Prabhu was so strict, preaching the pure thing, so that would clash a little bit. And of course, those were maybe the little older Guru Kulis. But especially the younger ones, as the years went on, I noticed that, so many younger devotees started joining the kirtan party, and then more and more and more and more, and now it's all pretty much, there's so many Vaishnava youth who have been greatly touched by Aindra Prabhu. On a few occasions, while traveling in different parts of the world, I have, not only a few actually, many occasions, I have encountered individuals, young people, young devotees, who have told me that the only reason why I'm here, why I'm interested in Krishna consciousness, is because of Aindra Prabhu's kirtan. One devotee in particular told me that if it weren't for Aindra's kirtan, I would be in a bar right now.
Hare Krishna.
So this is the power of the Shuddhanam, which is coming from Aindra Prabhu. It was like a transparent via medium. And just as Mukundadat Prabhu mentioned, although he didn't have an official position or anything like that, like a big, high position, even though he was head of 24-hour Kirtan department, he wasn't like a temple manager or a GBC or anything like that, or an initiating guru, mainly because he didn't want to how do you say?
I see.
He didn't want to get held up from the rasa dance, because there's that saying that if you accept disciples and those disciples are still not liberated, you have to come back to deliver them again. So he wanted to get back to Godhead, join the rasa dance, as quickly as possible. Used to stress that a lot. And yeah, so even though he didn't have some type of big position, and a lot of the time he had to surrender to his contemporaries, who were, they were his contemporaries as far as age and initiation and so on. He had to surrender to them in certain ways, such as, maybe somebody refusing them to give sannyas, refusing his sannyas and such, those type of things. And then they themselves later fall down. So even though he didn't have a managerial position much, his spiritual authority he had an edge on that, basically, almost, among most of his contemporaries. He had that spiritual edge, spiritual authority. And that can be seen by this, that he just stayed in one place and inspired the entire world. I had the great fortune of associating with him for about 10 years. Very closely, he was my kirtan partner. Like my partner in kirtan. Following in the line of Aindra Prabhu's Mridanga players, right here. I investigated all of this with Aindra Prabhu. Looked into the whole history. Said Ananda Chaitanya was his first Mridanga player. And then Gopinath, Madhava, and Govinda Gopal, and then like this.
Guru Parampara.
So we all had the great fortune of associating very closely with Aindra Prabhu. Okay, anything else?
So, Vrindavan Prabhu just reminded me of a couple incidents. Aindra, the whole concept of, he said he didn't want to be held back from the Rasa Leela. And back in the day when he was not popular at all, as he became later, right? About 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, worldwide, popular. He was criticized a lot, especially by his godbrothers. And the mood was that you're just, Babaji is here, you're just, Prabhupada told us that it's a Gostinandi movement. Yeah, Gostinandi, they go and preach. And Aindra and his raggedy brahmacharis are just here. And
They were ragged.
they came to Vrindavan because they're dysfunctional and useless anywhere else, and they don't want to preach, they're just lazy and just want to Babaji out here in Vrindavan. And the fact was that Babaji life means what? You go away from to a secluded place, away from the public, and don't bother about anyone. Right? Gaur Kishore, as Babaji said, let them all go to hell. That was his mood. He didn't care so much. So, Prabhupada instructed that we are going on the preaching movement. But, if you see the temple, are we really in a secluded place? Do you have any privacy here? I mean, during kirtan, or is the 24-hour kirtan not a preaching program? You think it's not preaching? I mean, maybe you go to the night shift. Yes, a couple devotees there, and you see the stars and the moon, and the night sounds of sweet,
Internet, 24 hours internet.
It's on the internet, okay.
Yes.
It's now.
It's not, okay, so even then, no privacy. So, and so because of that, Aindra Prabhupada said, yes, I want to go back to the Rasa Leela. And he was criticized that he just want to, the Babaji's, this Bhajananandi mood, you just want to have Krishna for you. You don't want to share it with the fallen souls because you have no compassion, like a real Paraduki Vaishnava. And he said, okay, I understand the point, and I'm ready, to come back life after life for millions of lifetimes to preach, and I would go to hell to preach. But first, I want to see Krishna face to face, eye to eye, lips to lips, he said. As he was. And then I just want to see him once, and I will come back again and be a guru, accept the position if Krishna wants me to be, if Prabhupada wants me to be. But as for now, he says, I made a deal with my Nitai Sachi Sutta because so many times he was asked, please, Prabhu, accept me as your disciple. So many people, I don't want, nobody else inspires me, nobody comes to your level. And he says, because so many requests were there, demand, that I told my Nitai Sachi Sutta, okay, I become Guru. But first, you have to give me Krishna Prem. Not only that, but my disciple has to be like Narottam Das Thakur. You can't imagine. Because he said, and he was talking how the position of Guru is not a cheap thing. As it is taken sometimes in our institution, or any institution, spiritual institution. And yes, it's just this Rasa Leela, it's reminded me. And what I wanted to say is that the most attractive thing about him was to me, and I think to many people, it wasn't just his musical talent, okay? It wasn't his eccentric behavior and, funny. Here he was, just talked like a hillbilly sometimes, from West Virginia, but all these external, I wouldn't say conditioning, but his features he had, he was so, his conviction was so deep and uncompromising that nothing or nobody could take it away from him, nothing could change him. And he stood up for the truth and nothing but the truth and only the truth. And the institutional politics. And of course, when you see somebody strong like that in the mature world, naturally people become envious of you. They want to take your position away from you, that you worked so hard and suffered so much for it. They want to take it away from you, exploit you. And so, but Aindra didn't care. He had to tolerate all this and was just going and going and going. And he was super strong in his determination. And of course, he had all the astrological help, the planets, Mars and Jupiter and, Sun, they're all helping him. And he had all this exalted Saturn of renunciation. But we can't say these external, karmic reactions because of, there were the reaction to his previous, bhakti, punya, sukriti, heaps and piles of not just material pious activities, spiritual pious activities. So he was very exceptional in this way. And when people saw him, and they heard, when he opened his mouth, it was like Vrindavan, the spiritual world opened up, and you heard that sound, that conviction, and the penetrating through everything, that sound of the holy name, pure holy name was coming through. And he made every syllable count. Wasn't, wasting time, or he was on top of everything. And that was dangerous. So people that heard it was like, wow, this man is for real. Finally somebody is real. Not, mixed devotees with so many agendas, ulterior motive mixed. But he was the pure thing. And attracted so many people. They came to surrender their lives. It wasn't this is not a musical movement. It's a movement of pure devotion, and we have devotees who don't know much about music in the kirtan party, but they're sincere and simple. And reciprocation is there. And they're just like I saw you walking by the, when you go outside the temple, the Prabhupada Museum, always on the projector, Prabhupada talking. And he says, just like they say, your disciples, they're not like American. They're so peaceful. The Indian people say that your Prabhupada, your disciples, they're not like the rest of them, they're so peaceful. No? And so I just thought that was the driving force. We always say purity is the force. And how pure the purity is, that's how much it will attract people. And Aindra, it is lazy, intelligent, preaching project here. One time he was misquoted and he was very upset. No, I'm not lazy. This is lazy intelligence. That means I don't run around passionately. He criticized sometimes. We have to preach about preaching so we can preach how to preach about preaching until you're blue in the face how to preach. Preach what? First you have to become Krishna conscious. Then you can preach and give it to others. Otherwise you can preach about preaching and people just, they didn't get anything. Charity starts at home, right? So he made his homework, finished his homework, and then that's when the preaching became effective. So his lazy, intelligent